She was pouring coffee when the Admiral called her. First document. Dr. Sarah Chen had always been a creature of habit. Every morning at exactly 7:15 a.m., she would pour herself a cup of coffee from the department's ancient machine, the one that made sounds like a dying spacecraft, but somehow produced the perfect brew. The Applied Physics Laboratory at the University of California was quiet at this hour, save for the gentle hum of computers that never slept and the occasional footsteps of early arriving graduate students. Sarah stirred 2 sugars into her coffee, watching the steam rise in delicate spirals. At 34, she had already made a name for herself in theoretical physics, particularly in quantum field manipulation and energy dynamics. Her colleagues often joked that she could probably power half the campus with her brain alone, but Sarah preferred the simple pleasure of her morning routine. The laboratory around her was a maze of equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Particle accelerators hummed softly in their protective housings. Holographic displays showed complex mathematical equations floating in midair, and banks of quantum computers processed calculations that would have taken classical computers centuries to complete. Sarah had helped design much of this equipment herself, pushing the boundaries of what human technology could achieve. She was about to take her first sip when her personal communication device chirped. The sound was unusual, not the typical notification tone, but something deeper, more urgent. Sarah glanced at the device and froze. The caller ID simply read, Admiral J. Harrison, Unified Space Command. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the device. She had heard of Admiral Harrison, of course. Everyone in advanced physics had. He was the man responsible for humanity's most ambitious space exploration projects, the one who had overseen the construction of the massive orbital platforms that now served as launching points for deep space missions. But why would he be calling her? Dr. Chen speaking, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Dr. Chen, this is Admiral Harrison. I apologize for the early hour, but I need to speak with you immediately. It's a matter of planetary security. The coffee cup slipped from Sarah's other hand, shattering on the laboratory floor. The sound echoed through the quiet space like a gunshot. Planetary security. Admiral, I think you might have the wrong person. I'm just a theoretical physicist. Dr. Chen, I have your file right here. Your work on quantum field manipulation, particularly your theoretical framework for large-scale energy projection. We need you. Sarah's mind raced. Her research was highly theoretical, mathematical models that existed only on paper and in computer simulations. She had never imagined that her work could have practical applications, much less military ones. Admiral, with respect, my work is purely theoretical. I've never built anything that could actually function outside of a computer simulation. Dr. Chen, 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something that shouldn't exist. We're looking at an artificial construct approaching our solar system at roughly 12% light speed. It's massive, easily the size of our moon, and it's broadcasting signals in mathematical sequences that match your published research on quantum field dynamics. The laboratory suddenly felt very cold. Sarah sank into her desk chair, her legs no longer capable of supporting her weight. That's impossible. My research is theoretical. No one could build anything based on those equations. Someone has, Dr. Chen, and they're heading directly toward Earth. We estimate arrival in approximately 6 months. Sarah's computer screen automatically activated as she sat down, displaying her latest research notes. The equations stared back at her. Elegant mathematical expressions that described how quantum fields could be manipulated to create unprecedented amounts of energy. She had published some of this work, but the most advanced calculations remained in her personal files. Admiral, even if someone could build technology based on my research, the energy requirements would be astronomical. You'd need the power output of a small star just to create a stable quantum field large enough to propel something that massive. Dr. Chen, this construct is not only moving at 12% light speed, but our analysis suggests it's accelerating. Whatever's powering it, it makes our most advanced fusion reactors look like candles. Sarah stared at her equations, seeing them in a new light. What if someone had solved the power problem? What if they had found a way to tap into quantum vacuum energy or discovered some other source of unlimited power? The implications were staggering. Admiral, you said the signals match my research. What exactly are they broadcasting? Mathematical sequences, Dr. Chen. Prime number sequences, followed by quantum field equations that are almost identical to your work. But there are differences, modifications that our best physicists can't understand. We need you to help us decode these signals and determine what this construct wants. Sarah's hands moved across her keyboard, pulling up her most recent research. The equations that had kept her awake for months, the theoretical framework that could, in theory, allow for the manipulation of space-time itself. If someone had actually built technology based on this work, they would be capable of things that humanity could barely imagine. Dr. Chen, are you still there? Yes, Admiral, I'm here. But I need you to understand something. If what you're describing is real, if someone has actually built technology based on my research, then we're dealing with a civilization that's centuries, maybe millennia ahead of us technologically. We understand the implications, Dr. Chen. That's why we need you. You understand this technology better than anyone on Earth. We need you to help us figure out how to communicate with them, and if necessary, how to defend ourselves. Sarah looked around her laboratory, at the equipment that had seemed so advanced just minutes ago. Now it all looked primitive, like stone tools compared to what was apparently approaching their solar system. Admiral, my research suggests that any civilization capable of building what you're describing would have weapons that could destroy our planet without even slowing down. If they wanted to harm us, we'd already be dead. Then why are they coming here, Dr. Chen? What do they want? Sarah stared at her computer screen, at the equations that had somehow called something from the depths of space to Earth. The mathematical beauty of her work now seemed ominous, like a beacon that had attracted the attention of something vast and unknowable. I don't know, Admiral, but I think we're about to find out. The laboratory was still quiet, but the silence now felt heavy with possibility and dread. Sarah's morning routine had been shattered along with her coffee cup, replaced by the weight of knowledge that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. And somehow, her research had played a role in bringing whatever was coming directly to their doorstep. Dr. Chen, I'm sending a transport to pick you up within the hour. We need you at Space Command immediately. Bring everything. All your research, all your files, everything you have on quantum field manipulation. Admiral, wait. If this construct is using technology based on my research, then whoever built it has been monitoring our scientific progress. They've been watching us. What makes you say that? Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up publication dates and research timelines. My most recent work, the equations that would be necessary for large-scale quantum field manipulation, I only published them 6 months ago. For someone to build technology this advanced based on that research, they would have had to start construction almost immediately. That suggests they were already prepared, already waiting for someone to develop the theoretical framework they needed. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Admiral, I think they've been waiting for us to develop this technology. They've been waiting for us to invite them. The line was quiet for a long moment. When Admiral Harrison spoke again, his voice was grim. Dr. Chen, that transport is now 15 minutes away. We need you here now. Sarah looked around her laboratory one last time, at the place where she had spent countless hours pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. She had always believed that science was about discovery, about expanding humanity's understanding of the universe. She had never imagined that her work might serve as an invitation for something beyond human comprehension to come calling. She began gathering her research files, her hands moving automatically while her mind tried to process what was happening. In the space of a 10-minute phone call, her quiet life as a theoretical physicist had been transformed into something that felt like science fiction. But the mathematics didn't lie. And if Admiral Harrison was right, something was coming that would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. As she packed her research, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The construct approaching Earth was just the first act in a drama that would reshape human civilization. And somehow, she had written the script that made it all possible. She was pouring coffee when the Admiral called her, second document. The transport arrived precisely when Admiral Harrison had promised, a sleek military vehicle that looked more like a spacecraft than a ground-based transport. Sarah climbed aboard with her hastily packed research files, her mind still reeling from the morning's revelations. The pilot, a young officer with lieutenant's bars, said nothing during the flight to Space Command, but Sarah caught him glancing at her several times in the mirror with what looked like a mixture of curiosity and concern. Space Command headquarters rose from the Nevada desert like a metallic mountain, its surfaces covered with arrays of communication dishes and sensor equipment that pointed toward the sky. Sarah had seen pictures of the facility before, but experiencing it in person was different. The building seemed to pulse with barely contained energy, as if the very walls were alive with the flow of information from across the solar system. Admiral Harrison met her personally at the landing pad, something that surprised Sarah. She had expected to be handed off to subordinates, but the Admiral himself was there, a tall man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore the standard black uniform of Space Command, but the weight of command was evident in every gesture. "Dr. Chen, thank you for coming so quickly. I know this must be overwhelming." Sarah clutched her research files tighter. "Admiral, I'm still not entirely sure I believe what you told me. Part of me thinks I'm going to wake up and find this was all a very strange dream." "I understand. What we're asking you to accept challenges everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. But the data doesn't lie." He led her through corridors that hummed with activity. Officers moved with purposeful urgency, their faces tight with concentration. Sarah caught fragments of conversations as they passed, discussions of orbital defense platforms, energy readings that defied explanation, and preparations for scenarios that sounded like they belonged in science fiction novels. The briefing room was a cavern of holographic displays, each one showing different aspects of the approaching construct. Sarah gasped when she saw the first detailed image. The object was not just large. It was beautiful, in a way that made her chest tight. Its surface was covered with patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living metal. And energy readings showed power signatures that dwarfed anything in human technology. "Dr. Chen, meet the team that's been analyzing this situation," Admiral Harrison said, gesturing to the dozen people gathered around the central holographic display. "Dr. Martinez, our chief astrophysicist, Commander Wong, head of our Xenotechnology Division, Dr. Okafor, our leading expert on artificial intelligence." Sarah shook hands mechanically, her attention focused on the data streaming across the displays. Energy readings, structural analysis, signal patterns. It was all there. Proof that something impossible was approaching Earth. But as she studied the information, patterns began to emerge that made her increasingly uncomfortable. "The mathematical sequences it's broadcasting," she said, moving closer to one of the displays. "They're not just similar to my research. They're identical to equations I haven't published yet." Dr. Martinez, a woman with graying hair and kind eyes, nodded grimly. "That's what we were afraid you'd say." The construct appears to have access to information that should be impossible for it to possess. Sarah's hands moved across the holographic interface, manipulating the data to show different aspects of the signals. The equations floated in three-dimensional space around her, mathematical poetry that described the fundamental structure of reality itself. But seeing them broadcast from an alien construct was like discovering that someone had been reading her private diary. "This doesn't make sense," she murmured, studying the pattern of transmissions. "These equations, they represent years of work. Some of them are modifications I made just last week. How could they possibly have this information?" Commander Wong, a compact man with intelligent eyes, leaned forward. "Dr. Chen, we've been monitoring global communications networks for any sign of unauthorized access to research databases. There's no evidence that your work has been compromised through conventional means." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Then how?" "That's what we're hoping you can help us figure out," Admiral Harrison said. "But there's something else. The construct has begun altering its transmission patterns. The mathematical sequences are becoming more complex, as if it's responding to our analysis of its signals." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. "You think it knows we're listening?" "We think it's been designed to know we're listening," Dr. Okafor said quietly. The AI expert was a young man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "The patterns suggest a form of communication protocol that adapts based on the receiver's level of understanding. It's teaching us its language by building on concepts we already understand." Sarah stared at the displays, watching as new mathematical sequences appeared in real time. The construct was still months away, but it was already communicating with them, using her own research as a foundation for increasingly sophisticated concepts. "It's not just using my equations, it's improving them." She moved to one of the workstations and began entering commands, pulling up her own research files alongside the alien transmissions. The comparison was startling. The construct's versions of her equations were more elegant, more efficient, solving problems that had stumped her for months with mathematical techniques that seemed almost artistic in their beauty. "Dr. Chen," Admiral Harrison said, "we need to know what it wants. More importantly, we need to know if humanity is in danger." Sarah studied the patterns, her mind working to decode the increasingly complex mathematical language the construct was using. Hours passed as she worked, the team around her providing support and analysis. Gradually, a picture began to emerge that was both fascinating and terrifying. "It's not just communicating with us," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's evaluating us." "What do you mean?" Dr. Martinez asked. "The mathematical progression. The way it's building complexity upon complexity. It's a test. The construct is measuring our ability to understand advanced physics and mathematics. It's determining our level of technological development." Commander Wong frowned. "To what end?" Sarah felt the weight of realization settling over her like a heavy blanket. "I think it's deciding whether we're ready." "Ready for what?" "I don't know. But the mathematical patterns suggest that this isn't the first time this has happened. The sequences include what appear to be references to other star systems, other worlds. I think this construct has done this before, with other civilizations." The room fell silent. Sarah could hear the hum of the building's systems, the quiet conversations from adjacent rooms. The subtle sounds of a facility dedicated to monitoring the galaxy for signs of life. All of it seemed suddenly fragile, like humanity was a child playing in a sandbox, while giants moved in the distance. "Dr. Chen," Admiral Harrison said, "if this is some kind of test, do you think we're passing?" Sarah looked at the displays showing Earth's defense capabilities. Orbital platforms with fusion weapons, particle beam arrays, the most advanced military technology humanity had ever created. Compared to what was approaching, It all looked like stone knives and wooden clubs. "Admiral, I think the test isn't about our military capabilities. I think it's about our intellectual capacity. The construct is using increasingly sophisticated mathematics because it's trying to determine if we can comprehend concepts that go beyond our current understanding." She pulled up a new display, showing the pattern of mathematical progression in the construct's signals. "Look at this. It started with basic principles we understand, then moved to more advanced concepts. Each step builds on our response to the previous one. It's like a teacher gradually increasing the difficulty of problems to see how far a student can go." Dr. Okafor leaned forward, his expression intense. "And what happens if we fail the test?" Sarah stared at the beautiful, terrible patterns flowing across the displays. The construct continued to approach, its signals growing more complex by the hour, pushing the boundaries of human mathematical understanding. She thought about the other star systems referenced in the transmissions, wondering what had happened to the civilizations that had faced this same test before them. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I have a feeling we're about to find out whether humanity is ready to join something much larger than ourselves, or if we're going to remain alone on our small planet, wondering what might have been." The mathematical sequences continued to evolve, each new transmission more complex than the last, pushing humanity toward a moment of decision that would determine their future among the stars. She was pouring coffee when the Admiral called her, third document. 2 months had passed since that morning when Sarah's coffee cup shattered on the laboratory floor and everything had changed. The Space Command facility had become her second home, her days consumed by the increasingly complex mathematical dialogue with the approaching construct. The initial team of 12 had grown to over 200 of the world's brightest minds, all working together to decode what had become the most important conversation in human history. Sarah stood before the main display, which now showed the construct in unprecedented detail. It had slowed its approach and taken position at the edge of the solar system, just beyond Pluto's orbit. The object was even more magnificent than the early images had suggested. Its surface rippled with energy patterns that seemed to follow the same mathematical principles it had been broadcasting, as if the entire structure was a physical manifestation of pure mathematics. "Dr. Chen, we're receiving a new transmission," announced Lieutenant Foster, one of the young officers who had joined the project. "But this one's different." Sarah moved to the communication station, her heart racing. The mathematical sequences had grown exponentially more complex over the past weeks, pushing human understanding to its absolute limits. Her team had managed to keep pace, but barely. Now, as she studied the incoming data, she realized that something fundamental had changed. "It's not mathematics," she breathed. "It's language, actual language." The display filled with symbols that seemed to flow like water, characters that shifted and changed as she watched them. But somehow, impossibly, she could understand them. The meaning seemed to bypass her conscious mind and speak directly to some deeper level of comprehension. "What does it say?" Admiral Harrison asked, moving to stand beside her. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Greetings, children of Earth. You have passed the first examination. We are the gardeners, and we have watched your species grow from its earliest moments. The time has come for you to choose your path among the stars." The room fell silent. 2 months of tension, fear, and desperate work had led to this moment. First contact with an intelligence that dwarfed human civilization. Sarah continued reading, her hands trembling as she translated the flowing symbols. "Your species shows promise. You have developed the mathematical framework necessary for quantum field manipulation without destroying yourselves, a test that many civilizations fail. However, knowledge without wisdom is a path to extinction. We must evaluate not just your intellectual capacity, but your moral development." Dr. Martinez stepped forward, her face pale. "They're not the first to make contact, are they?" Sarah shook her head, continuing to translate. The universe contains many species at various stages of development. Some advance to join the greater community of intelligent life. Others choose isolation. Still others destroy themselves or must be contained for the safety of others. Admiral Harrison's jaw tightened. Contained? Sarah read further, her expression growing more concerned. Throughout the galaxy, we maintain watch over developing civilizations. Those that prove capable of wisdom join our collective, gaining access to technologies and knowledge beyond current human comprehension. Those that prove dangerous are restricted to their home systems until they mature or expire naturally. The implications were staggering. Humanity was being evaluated not just for intelligence, but for their worthiness to join a galactic civilization. The test wasn't over. It was just beginning. Dr. Chen, Commander Wong said urgently, what exactly does this evaluation involve? Sarah continued translating, her face growing more serious with each symbol. We will present your species with a choice that will reveal your true nature. In 72 hours, we will provide you with the complete technological specifications for quantum field manipulation devices capable of providing unlimited clean energy for your entire civilization. This technology could end poverty, halt environmental destruction, and provide the foundation for rapid advancement to a spacefaring civilization. That sounds incredible, Dr. Okafor said. What's the catch? Sarah's hands paused over the symbols, her face grave. The same technology can be weaponized to create devices capable of destroying entire star systems. How your species chooses to use this gift will determine whether you are invited to join the galactic community or whether Earth must remain isolated until you achieve greater wisdom. The room erupted in urgent conversations. Sarah could hear fragments of debate, discussions of international treaties, the impossibility of controlling such technology, the risk that hostile nations might acquire it first. But she continued reading, knowing there was more. Dr. Chen, Admiral Harrison said sharply. What else does it say? There's more, Sarah said, her voice heavy. The gardeners have been monitoring our communications, our conflicts, our progress. They know about every war, every act of cooperation, every choice we've made as a species. They have records of civilizations that used such technology to achieve peace and prosperity, becoming garden worlds of incredible beauty and wisdom. She paused, her throat tight. They also have records of species that used the technology for conquest and destruction. Those civilizations no longer exist. The weight of responsibility settled over everyone in the room. Humanity was being offered the keys to unlimited power, but accepting those keys came with the risk of self-destruction. It was a test that would determine not just their technological future, but their very survival. There's something else, Sarah continued, her voice barely audible. The choice must be made collectively. Not by governments or military leaders, but by representatives of humanity as a whole. The gardeners will only accept a decision that truly reflects the will of the entire species. Admiral Harrison ran a hand through his silver hair. How is that even possible? How do you get 8 billion people to agree on anything, especially something this monumentous? Sarah studied the flowing symbols, searching for more information. The construct will establish a direct communication link with every intelligent being on Earth simultaneously. Everyone will receive the same information, the same choice. Humanity will have 72 hours to reach a consensus. The room fell silent again as the full magnitude of the situation became clear. This wasn't a decision that could be made in secret government facilities or by military commanders. The entire human race would have to decide together whether they were ready to join a galactic civilization or remain isolated on their home planet. What if we can't reach a consensus? Dr. Martinez asked quietly. Sarah's fingers traced the final symbols of the message. Then the offer is withdrawn, and Earth remains under observation. The gardeners will return in 1,000 years to see if humanity has grown wiser. But the technology they're offering now will not be offered again. She looked around the room at the faces of the people who had become her colleagues and friends over the past 2 months. Scientists, military officers, philosophers, and technicians, all of them brilliant, all of them dedicated to protecting humanity. But the decision they faced was too large for any single group, no matter how intelligent or well-intentioned. "There's one final part to the message," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to share. "If humanity accepts the technology and uses it wisely, demonstrating that we can transcend our violent nature, then Earth will be invited to join a galactic confederation of intelligent species. We would gain access to knowledge accumulated over millions of years, technologies that would seem like magic to us now, and the opportunity to explore and help shepherd other developing civilizations." She paused, making sure everyone understood the full scope of what was being offered. "But if we accept the technology and use it for destruction, if we prove that we are not yet ready for such power, then the gardeners will take steps to ensure that humanity cannot threaten other civilizations." "What kind of steps?" Admiral Harrison asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. The message isn't specific, but it references containment protocols and species restriction measures. "I think they mean that Earth would be isolated, cut off from the rest of the galaxy permanently. We would become prisoners on our own planet." The communication display chimed softly, indicating a new transmission. Sarah turned back to the symbols flowing across the screen, her heart pounding as she read the final message. "The evaluation begins now. Representatives of Earth, you have 72 hours to demonstrate whether humanity is ready to join the community of civilized worlds. Choose wisely, for this decision will echo through all your generations to come." As the message ended, Sarah felt the weight of 8 billion lives resting on the choice that lay ahead. The morning when she had been pouring coffee in her laboratory seemed like a lifetime ago. That simple, peaceful existence had been replaced by something far more complex and consequential than she could ever have imagined. The real test was about to begin, and the future of humanity hung in the balance.